Hey, 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 hey. I'm so excited to be here today. Okay, and here's why. I love this topic. And it sounds a little creepy to say I love the topic of abuse, but it is my favorite topic and it's my favorite part of coaching. As part of my coaching, I am a narcissistic and other kinds of abuse coach. And I help people either while they're in abusive relationships to figure out if they're in abusive relationships or how to heal within the context of an abusive relationship or after they are out of an abusive relationship and trying to move forward. So this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart and I have a lot to say about it. So get your popcorn, buckle up, do what you need to do, relax. Abuse is another one of those words that's stigmatized and it is a triggering word. So just offering a little bit of, I guess, preparation that it could be triggering topic for some people. And I certainly will try my best not to trigger anyone. That is never my goal. But I do say that if you are triggered by what I say or what anyone else says, please realize that that is for you. The triggering is for you. It is about you. It is about your pain. It is about your past. It is about your own beliefs, fears, doubts, insecurities, and struggles. It is not about the other person and it is not personal. So with that said, you're welcome if I trigger you. You are so very welcome. Okay, let's get going here because there's a lot to say. Today, I'm not going to talk about every kind of abuse. I am going to talk about some specific kinds of abuse, the abuse cycle, and trauma bonding, which is by far the most important part of the coaching that I do because it's related to trauma based in childhood developmental trauma. So it does impact us. Our childhood trauma does impact us into our present day circumstances very often with the people we have in our lives, our jobs, and our situations that we draw to ourselves. So it is going to be the important or the most talked about aspect of the show today. So anyway, welcome to Blooming Into You. I forgot to welcome you. I am Kristen Dicker, your host, and I am, like I said, very excited to talk about this topic. Okay. It's passionate for me because it is so prevalent and it is such an opportunity when we heal from our trauma and heal from our abusive relating, whether we are abusing or we are being abused or both, which happens. To move forward into a space of awakening to our true authentic selves and know for the first time perhaps in our whole lives what it means to be our authentic selves, have voice, have choice, and be able to love from our true selves, come home to who we truly are and awaken to our wholeness, our greatness, and the love that we actually are, and be able to love ourselves and each other so much more deeply and connectedly and passionately and on purpose and for real. So when we are traumatized, it's very hard for us to know how to love ourselves, right? And we don't know how to love other people if we don't know how to love ourselves. And so the goal is always for me to help you learn how to, either by this kind of education or in coaching that we do, learn how to have the skills that you may not have learned or may have been just completely forgotten while you were living your life within the context of having been traumatized or abused and not really being able to know who you really are, not be able to trust yourself, believe in yourself, or decide for yourself what's really important to you and deferring to others for your own life pathway and choices. And so it's very near and dear to my heart. And I can feel like I can cry a lot about it. I won't, hopefully, but I might because it's so empowering to find ourselves, especially when we have lost ourselves from giving all of our power to other people to help us live our lives. And when we lose ourselves, I want to say that is the most dangerous place we can be. And I'm not saying that to be like, minimizing the fact that, of course, if you're held at gunpoint or you're hit and physically abused, that's obviously very dangerous. But in the sense of, when you come out of an abusive relationship, you don't know if you can trust yourself. You don't know why you chose the person you chose. You don't know if you could ever choose well again. And that is very scary to not know yourself and know how to trust yourself to make good decisions. It's very scary. And for anyone who's ever been in that position, I think you can agree with me about this. It is quite It is quite dangerous. It really, really is. So let's get into this a little bit. I'm going to just touch on some types of abuse first. I'm not going to go fully into them because I'm really going to focus on emotional abuse and narcissistic abuse, the abuse cycle, and also trauma bonding. Okay, as I mentioned. So examples of some kinds of abuse. Let's just jump in real quick here. Um, physical abuse. There is emotional abuse. There's verbal abuse. There's financial abuse, elder abuse, neglect, child abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse. Okay. There are other ones, but these are just some main ones. And I want to touch on them more, but I'm not going to because I think it's just going to take too much time to talk about these things. You can look them up if you're interested. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the abuse cycle. So if any of these types of abuse, let me repeat them. If any of them strike a chord with you as you've experienced them or you are experiencing them, if you go to research them, please use the information I'm going to give you about trauma bonding, narcissistic abuse, emotional abuse, and the abuse cycle especially to, compare and contrast and see if this applies to your life. And it may or may not. So we have physical abuse, verbal abuse, emotional abuse, elder abuse, financial abuse, child abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and spiritual abuse. Hopefully I didn't go too fast, but you can rewind. Okay. The abuse cycle. And I'm sorry to jump, but I do know that this trauma bonding part is going to take me a while because there's a lot I have to say about it. And the reason I'm going to talk about this the most and the last part of it is because it's so very prevalent in our world right now. Narcissistic abuse is as well, but and emotional abuse. These are the three that are very key right now. So the abuse cycle though, or it's also been known as the cycle of abuse or the power and control cycle or wheel. So you may have heard of those names in the past. So it starts out like this. Now, again, apply any abusive situation you've been in or are in to this cycle of abuse, because this is the main sort of textbook pattern that the abuse follows. Okay. It's not exact for everyone, but certain types of abuse cycling, and trauma bonds, these all have sort of textbook characteristics that we can look at and say, oh, okay, if this person's acting this way and has these specific characteristics, I don't know if I'm going to diagnose that person as this, but I sure know that they are doing these things and I don't really like the way it makes me feel. That's really the bottom line for everything. Okay. It doesn't matter what we diagnose. We don't have to diagnose or label people. We can just look at how they're treating us and decide whether we like it or not, whether it makes us feel good or not. And I'm going to explain to you why it might feel okay to you to be in an abusive relationship and why it's not so easy to just get out of it just because everyone says it. If you're being treated like that, just leave. Don't be an idiot. You're not an idiot. Please don't bully yourself like that. I do not like that. And you're not wrong. It's part of the whole structure, the whole dynamic of the abuse, which we'll get into. Now, the abuse cycle starts with tension building. Okay, there's a tension building phase. And in this phase, the abusive person will start to become a little bit more irritable or angry, controlling, and you as the victim feel like you need to walk on eggshells in order to maintain peace so that the person doesn't get to the next level, which is sort of the explosive point. It's the incident phase. And this is when the abuser starts the abuse. They might hit you. They might slap you. They might choke you. They might bash you with verbal insults or criticism, threats, gaslighting, belittling. Okay. They explode and they go crazy. They are enraged for whatever reason. We don't know what did it. There's a good chance they're going to blame you for it, but it's not your fault when anyone reacts in any way, whether in a happy way, a mad way, a sad way. It's never your fault unless you were provoking them on purpose. And typically in abusive cycling, the victim is not trying to provoke the abusive person because there have been past situations where it has not gone well for the victim. So the victim is very, very often trying to play small and hide and not be setting the abuser off. Okay. So then we jump into, so we have the fight, it's a big ordeal, it's a big mess. And then we have the reconciliation phase. This is kind of considered the honeymoon phase. This is where any kind of idealization or love bombing or apologies or remorse are experienced. There could be gift giving, there could be trips, there could be sex, there could be a lot of things that create this bond again. And this offers the victim a lot of hope and a lot of confusion because there is something that we call cognitive dissonance that's thrown in here. And that is when your abuser will intermittently give you the love that they gave you in the beginning of the relationship, and then it's mixed in with the abuse. If somebody abused you all the time, you would leave them. If you are abused occasionally and thrown, and most of the time or much of the time, it's very calm and you're getting along, that's confusing. And your brain needs to know what to expect. It can't live with the gray area. It needs black and it needs white. It needs up, it needs down. It needs red, it needs green. It needs yes, it needs no. And if you have to make it, if your brain has to make a decision on survival, it's going to decide my partner's a good person. My partner's not a bad person. If I have to think that my partner's a bad person, I have to do things like leave my partner, and my partner might get mad and retaliate in some way. And I don't want that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a decision. This is subconscious. I want you to know this is not conscious, but this is subconsciously the brain says, nope, I haven't died from this. It's safe enough. It's fine. He's a good person. She's a good person. I'm going to stay. I probably caused this anyway. You should gaslight yourself here. I probably caused the fight. He or she said I did anyway. And so I'll just do better next time so I don't cause, quote unquote, cause my abusive partner to lash out at me again. So the honeymoon phase goes on because now abuser's calm, victim is settled into behaving better. Again, I'm going to use quotes for behaving better, right? And then we go on to the calm or the normal phase. And that's just when the relationship is normal again, getting along, having fun, doing the daily grind. No big deal. No fights. Not really that wonderful. Could be wonderful at times, but just normal, right? Normal relationship, whatever that means for you. Okay. Over time, this cycle does shorten. It does happen more often and it does become more intense. The abuse becomes worse. And if at any point in time throughout these cycles, you decide as a victim to leave your, I'm saying narcissist, but your abusive partner, if you come back, it will be worse for you. Usually the abuser will not like it. They will feel like you offended their ego in some way and they will make it harder for you. They will abuse you more to keep you more in line and under control. You can't go around embarrassing them like that. You can't go around, leaving them and abandoning them because that's bad for them. And so you're going to have to be punished. Okay. And there are many ways that the abuser will punish, which I'll get into. Okay. That's the abuse cycle. Okay. It's pretty intense. It's pretty textbook. And so if this is happening in your life, and it's hard to tell, and I'll explain later why it's hard to tell sometimes, but I'm giving you the information so that if you need it at some point, you have it. So there you go. So then we've got another type, a type of abuse called emotional abuse. Okay. This is the hardest kind of abuse to see and to notice. Emotional abuse is happening in our world, in every area of our world. It happens in our institutions of marriage, politics, government, everything, and, financial. It happens in our families. It's happened for generations. And it used to be that the way to punish children was to hit them, right? That was the way to control children. Well, at some point, child abuse became a big thing. So no one wants to hit their children anymore. So now, then there was verbal abuse. And then, that's abusive too. Can't do that to your children or your partner because you get in trouble. So dang, if I'm an abuser, what am I going to do to control the people in my life? How am I going to do this? Oh, I'm going to lie. I'm going to gaslight. I'm going to try and change my partner's reality. I'm going to control and manipulate, and I'm going to make threats and intimidate, and I'm going to project. I'm going to do all kinds of underhanded, very insidious behaviors that are very hard to detect. And guess what? No one can detect them because there's no bruises. There's no cuts. There's no, he called me a whatever. There's nothing like that. It is under the surface. It is very hard to understand that it's happening. And because it happens in our families of origin so much, and it happens in our world at work and in our government and in our world, it's very hard to discern whether it's happening or not. The world is waking up to this. Okay. So this is a good thing. And the reason that people like me come on and lecture you about this stuff is because catching it is difficult. but catching it is life-saving, right? Like I mentioned, it's dangerous to lose yourself. And emotional abuse is a way that you will lose yourself because you will believe your partner because your partner loves you, right? Your partner wants the best for you, according to your partner. And so let's get into this because I want to say more about how these relationships start and what happens. Emotional abuse can start in the same way that narcissistic abuse can start. And because narcissists often will use emotional abuse as their main tactic. So I'm going to kind of lump the two in together. Just because somebody's emotionally abusing you does not mean they're a narcissist. Okay. But if you're a narcissist, you're going to use emotional abuse tactics. That's just part of it. No, we're not calling everybody who is emotionally abusive a narcissist. No, not everyone is a narcissist. I don't care how many selfies you take. That does not make you a narcissist. Narcissistic tendencies are on the rise. Being diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder is not a huge number of people. I mean, a huge percentage, a huge number of people, because we have a lot of people on the planet. It's not a huge percentage of people. Now it's apparently on the rise and that we have to be careful, but everyone has narcissistic tendencies and don't be shocked by that. There's a spectrum. There are people who are more on the empathetic or empathic side and they're more on the NPD side, but all of us are raised in this world. And if you are empathic, if you were raised by narcissistic people, you likely picked up narcissistic traits because empaths take the projections of their abusers as their own, as it's their fault. So they sponge up a lot of feelings and they can, but if you are more empathic, that's good because that means you can overcome these tendencies, right? You can overcome the things that you were trained and groomed to do, right? If you are more narcissistic, sociopathic, psychopathologic, I don't think that there's as much of a chance you can change. And I'm not saying people can't change. I think everyone can change. It's just that depending on how much trauma somebody had as a child and how much shame they have and their ability or inability to take accountability for their flaws, their mistakes, because of their shame, it's going to prevent them really from wanting to change and wanting to look at themselves because it's really just too scary to have to look at all the quote unquote bad things a person has done. And when you've been shamed into believing you're such a bad person from such a young age, and shame is a protector, as I mentioned in the last podcast, if you don't just honestly look at the labels you give yourself, the beliefs you have that are negative, and say, I made some bad mistakes. I feel really bad and guilty and remorseful, and I'm sorry. I want to apologize. I never want to do that again. If you can't do that, you can't change, right? If you're going to be in denial about what you've done and you're not going to admit to it, it's too hard to change. But if you can, wonderful. It's hard, but I'm proud of you if you can do that because it's very difficult. But once you do it, you are set free. If you aren't going to be willing to accept accountability for what you've done that's not good to people, you aren't free. You're just stuck in a cycle where you have to continuously find people who will make you feel worthy and good enough. And that's a predatory relationship, predator-prey relationship. So emotional narcissistic abuse. Let's say we're just going to combine these two. Okay. There are a few differences, but not a lot. So in these kinds of relationships, we have this idealization phase, this love bombing. When you first get together, it's like the best thing ever, right? It's like the biggest high because you found your soulmate. This is what you think. This is how the person presents it to you, whether they say that word or they just act like it because they mirror what you like and they pretend to like what you like and show how you have everything in common down to like the same kinds of foods you like and the same kinds of activities and interests. And you might actually share some interests that are the same, but sometimes these kinds of people can pretend, mimic and kind of chameleon themselves into making you believe that they're your perfect match. Okay. And this is really what they want to do. They want to shower you with affection, gifts, love, sex, everything that's going to make you feel worthy, tell you you're so attractive, and they cherish and adore you and they respect you and they look up to you and they really idolize you, honestly. And, this is why anyone can get caught in the cycle of abuse because everyone to one degree or another wants to be loved. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's part of being human. And it just depends on how wounded you were when you were a child about it. That kind of makes up how much kind of desperation you're going to have toward really being loved. If you have a big abandonment wound from attachment rupturing as a child, you are going to want love even more. And we'll get much more into that in trauma bonding. But so And if you weren't traumatized, you're less likely to get, dragged in and hooked in by these people. But you can, anyone can, especially if you're like a very confident seeming person, or you're very secure and you like yourself and you're happy and you're just kind of like happy go lucky at ease with yourself. This is like prime energy, prime supply for a narcissistic person. They have huge voids and they don't have a lot of their own self energy. They don't have a lot of their soul. They don't have a lot of their authentic core source self to draw on. So they draw on other people's. And especially if you have things they want, like, good personality, intelligence, and you're attractive and you're going to make them look better in some way. They want that. They want to be on your arm. They want to be by your side. You'll make them look good. Okay. And you'll make them feel good because the more they give you this attention in the beginning, the more you're going to get hooked in with flatter, by being flattered by it. And, just, wow, I found my person, this is like the best thing ever. So then they get you all hooked in. Okay. And then as soon as they're very secure in the relationship, they start to do the devaluing. The devaluing phase comes next. And that is when a lot of the emotional abuse tactics start, like controlling and humiliating and manipulating. They will damage, they will cut on your emotional well-being. They'll try to do whatever they can to make you less secure. They'll take digs at your body or your finances or your intelligence or whatever's really, really important to you. Because at this point, they've been listening. They know what your problems are. They know your past. They know your insecurities because you've opened up to them because they've made you feel safe. They've made you feel like they really care about you as well as think you're attractive and smart. They make it you think that they really have your back and they're good and they're listening. They're listening very well to you, by the way, in the love bombing idealization. They're listening to you. They're paying attention. And the reason they're paying attention to you is because when they get to the devaluation part, it's easier to cut you with the things that mean a lot to you. And whether we think this is a conscious thing on abusive people's part or not, I think for the most part it is. And the reason is this: when children are traumatized so severely that they have a huge void and they need a lot of love, children live from a primal brain. They don't have higher brain development when they're children, and they live from an animal instinct. And if you ever have seen people who loot a city after like a big professional sports game for whatever reason is going on, people who are doing those kinds of things, they have nothing to lose, right? They feel like they have nothing to lose and they're going to go take what they can get. And that's kind of how it is with abusive people. They didn't get their needs met when they were children, and they have nothing to fear. They don't feel fear. They don't feel remorse. So they can say whatever they want. They can lie, big or small, for no reason at all, just because they can. And when they lie, they believe their own lies. So they are very convincing. So they can tell you whatever they want to say, and they'll make you believe it. And in that sense, they're very charming, right? And so they will get you hooked in by saying whatever they need to say that they believe you will want to hear. And then once you're hooked in, they will start the devaluation process. And then the cycle of abuse that I mentioned earlier happens. And then, and so then you're in this intermittently getting back to the idealization love bombing stage when you're in the honeymoon phase of the abuse cycle. And then you go round and round in that until you as the victim are damaged. Your self-esteem is gone. You have nothing to offer in the way of confidence or happiness for the narcissist because you don't have confidence anymore, because they've cut your confidence. They've either emotionally, verbally, physically, sexually, financially, spiritually abused you, or neglected you, or abandoned you during the devaluation abuse cycle part so often, so much over the years or months or whatever it is, that you really don't have much of a self left. You don't have much of your old self, your happy-go-lucky, your confidence, your self-esteem. The things that you had in the beginning when you felt good before you were in this relationship they're not gone forever. Don't get me wrong, but they're gone. I mean, you don't feel good about yourself. And then that gives your abusive partner the one up on you. And by the way, they're sort of stealing your identity in a sense. They're sort of taking your core goodness and like patching it to their like scarecrow need to be filled up with stuffed bodies, and until they're like making themselves into sort of a human, half human type person. And they're walking around acting like they're everything because they're just taking your identity. And I don't mean your physical identity in terms of you as a human on this planet, financially and, social security, but hey, that can happen too and does. But I'm just talking about they'll take your good qualities as their own, and they'll act like they're the one who are confident. They're the ones who are smart. They're the ones who are kind to people, and all those things the way you are or were. And in the meantime, you as this kind of empty shell-ish person are doing things to gain energy, because this person is taking energy, an energy vampiring from you, right? So you don't have energy. You don't have the same kind of energy. You're giving it all to this person in order to prop them up and make them feel better, because if you don't, there is hell to pay. You get yelled at, you get criticized, you get hit. So you're doing everything you can all the time to supply them money, love, attention, affection, whatever they want, praise, trips, whatever they need, so they won't get mad. And you're losing yourself. You're losing yourself. You're losing your energy. You're losing your health, because also when this person is cutting on you and telling you you're not good enough and you don't do enough and you're like a bad person and you're ugly, whatever they're saying now in the devaluing part, you're believing them because they have projected their flaws and insecurities onto you, and you've taken them in as your own. And now you're like, I'm the one who starts the fights. I don't do enough. And I'm starving for attention and love, and I'm not getting it. I'm trying my best to love him or her so I can get love, and I'm getting it sometimes, but not really. You're not necessarily noticing this entirely, but this is kind of what's happening. And if you pay attention closely, you will see, oh, I started drinking more. Oh, I started eating bad foods, and I don't exercise, and I don't sleep enough. I'm stressed. I'm overweight. I don't want to go to the gym. I just want to lay on the couch and watch TV. I have no brain cells that I want to use anymore. I don't know myself. I don't have energy to do anything. I don't want to play with my kids. I don't want to go out. Well, I don't want to interact. Plus, you're being isolated from family and friends anyway. You're not really allowed to have those people in your life as much, because then your abuser doesn't get as much attention, or you could talk badly about your abuser to them and they would think badly, and your abuser will not want that. So you get manipulated and controlled and be, isolated from other people. You get to go to work and you get to come home and you get to entertain them on the weekends, and you get to sit with them and be bored at night, and you get to, it's just, this is your life. And I will explain why that seems to be okay for many people. Okay. And why people settle for this. And when I get into trauma bonding in a minute, this is all, there's encapsulated in this devaluation part is, the control and manipulation. There's gaslighting, and that is changing your reality. And it is making the victim believe that what they believe and what they think and what they feel is not true and not real. And the abuser will change the victim's mind, basically. Like, you're not seeing this right. I'm the one who knows about this stuff. You don't know anything about what I know. I know I'm smarter. I know about these things, and you're wrong, and you're overreacting, and no. And I love you. So why would you think I would be like that to you? It's just like a lot of almost like common sense, or obviously if I love you, I wouldn't treat you that way. So you're paranoid. You're making this up in your mind, or like I am the professional who knows about this stuff. You aren't. So I'm going to tell you that you are the abusive person. You are this person. You're the one who manipulates, whatever. And the empathic person or victim will be like, oh, shoot, I didn't know I was doing that. I'm doing that. And it's confusing. And I'm going to say, confusion is a red flag in relationships. And if you are confused in your relationship at all about where you stand or where your partner stands, pay attention to that. If you are confused about why a fight started, who started it, and you don't remember details about it, it's because you are in a fog, which stands for fear, obligation, and guilt. You are confused. You are having cognitive dissonance, and Gaslighting is a big part of that, of the confusion, because it's changing your reality and basing your beliefs on what your partner is telling you is to be believed. Okay. So it changes your perceptions and things that happen, and the abuser denies or changes history, denies what happened. It's a very insane mind mess, I'll say, because I don't want to say the F word, but it's like that. It's a very confusing mess. Okay. And you don't know which end is up, and you don't know why the fight started, and you just want it to end so you can get back to being normal. So all of this is going on in the devaluation stage of, an abusive relationship, which is also part of that explosive time, right? And this can go on intermittently, right? And so you get criticized a lot, belittled, controlled and manipulated, threats, the intimidation, guilt tripping, silent treatment, and withholding affection, sex, love, money, whatever is important to make you feel inadequate and to punish you. And this is creating an emotional dependency and causing emotional distress in the victim. There's also jealousy and possessiveness. If you thought the gaslighting was confusing, let me just tell you, you can have a person who's either jealous and possessive of you or who is trying to make you jealous and possessive by triangulating with another person. So the whole idea is to keep you shifting with sand underneath your feet and like not knowing which end is up. Okay. It's like when you start a relationship and you're being love bombed and your person presents as like, I love you. You are the best thing that's ever happened to me. And also I'm a jealous person and I'm possessive. So, cause I just want you so bad. I don't, I don't want anyone else to have you because I want you for myself because I love you. I'm into you. I want you, whatever. Wow. That can be really flattering. And I know a lot of people are like, no, that's not flattering. Good. I'm glad you think that. But for many people who did not have their childhood needs met, it's kind of flattering, because somebody finally wants to love you. Okay. Wanting to be loved is not pathetic. It is part of living a life as a traumatized child. Traumatized children grow up to be traumatized adults until they heal it. So if you wanted the love you didn't get from your parent that you definitely needed and you did not get it, and your parent was giving more love to your siblings or friends or cousins or their husband or wife, and you never got that love, you want it, you crave it, you need it, actually. So as an adult, if somebody's coming to you with their love bombing and telling you that they are jealous and they want you, it's flattering. It's kind of like, wow, she really wants me. Like, he really wants me. Okay, I guess I'm the best, I guess I'm awesome. I guess I never knew I was so awesome, it's flattering. And then during the cycle of abuse, they will introduce a third party in to make you feel uncomfortable, uncertain, unsure, insecure, and jealous. And then they'll be able to say, you're just such a jealous person. Why are you so insecure? After they have made it so it seems like they're having this emotional or physical connection with somebody else while you're still with them. And it is very distressing, right? So jealousy and possessiveness are part of this whole cycle with abusive people. There's shaming and humiliation, projecting their flaws onto you, unpredictable or volatile behavior. They have outbursts. And to the person who's listening who's never been in an abusive relationship, this sounds like obviously you're going to get out of this, right? Because any of these things, not even one of them, would make most people run away. But to people who have been traumatized, it's not that easy. And it's very dismissive for people to say that to people who do not come from healthy backgrounds. And there are many millions of people who do not come from healthy backgrounds. And so this is way more prevalent than it appears. And if you're ever caught in this kind of relationship, even if you were brought up in a healthy home as a child, you will understand that it is very difficult to get out of it. And anyone from any walk of life can be caught up in this. This isn't just poor people, stupid people, excuse my language. But I'm just thinking about what people will say. People who are undereducated or live in poverty or, I don't know, had abuse, it's highly intelligent people who work on Wall Street, who have millions of dollars, who are beautiful, who are actresses and actors, who, have everything going for them, who have confidence, who have, security about themselves and love themselves. So having said the love yourself part, I'm going to say that is the antidote. Self-love is the antidote to all forms of abuse. And once you have it and know that you have it, and you're very clear about it, No one can ever take that away from you again. And you will be ready to not accept those. You'll see the red flags sooner. I'm going to get into that in a minute. Okay, here we go. Let's talk about trauma bonds now. Okay. Trauma bonds are formed when people come together who have trauma and wounding from childhood and they have not healed it. And so we will have a child, we'll go from childhood, right? Start there. A child who has a rupture in their attachment with their caregiver, meaning mom or dad ignored baby, didn't pay attention, didn't feed them, or didn't just give them like enough love and affection, hold them enough, nurture them, um, let them cry unnecessarily for too long or something and didn't repair it. Didn't check on them, didn't let them know they were still there, didn't hug them, didn't kiss them, didn't tell them they loved them, didn't smile at them, just really didn't connect emotionally. Or shame them and said they were bad for crying or for screaming or anything, and just made them feel like their personhood was unacceptable and invalidated them. Okay. And we have different kinds of parents, right? So we have this sort of inconsistent parent or an abusive parent. We have more of like anxious attachment or disorganized attachment. We have the parent that just really never pays attention to the child and neglects them so badly that the child feels like they have to do everything for themselves, and they learn sort of to be helpless in this sort of learned helplessness state, and also take on their responsibility for their lives themselves. And those children become more avoidant or disorganized. Okay. Again, just because you had this happen when you were a child doesn't mean that when you're 38 or 50 years old, it goes away. This is how you were trained to be a person from the time you were little. This is how you were trained that love comes to you or doesn't come to you. This is what you believe to be true about yourself based on how they treated you, right? If they gave you love and nurturing and let you gain your own autonomy at the appropriate age and let you come back and they gave you love, and when you were hurt, they took you seriously and they let you cry and you held them as a parent, they can be more secure and confident as people as they grow up, right? But if children don't have that and they're shamed and they're told they're bad for crying or talking or laughing or screaming, whether it's appropriate or not, children do all these things. If they are told they are wrong for being who they are, if they are denied their sexuality, their sexual orientation, their gender, their beliefs, their thoughts, their athleticism, or their artistic side, or they're denied who they are, they disconnect from themselves, and there's a void that's created. They start to abandon themselves for other people's okays and yeses and validation and their beliefs. They start to trust other people more than themselves. They lose their connection to themselves, which means they lose their connection to their bodies and to their intuition. And your body holds the truth of whatever's happened to you, your trauma as well as your intuition. So when children are cut off from their bodies and they dissociate, right? They go into their minds. I'm a bad girl unless I do this. They read, they numb out in some way, they sleep a lot. And then later they start doing drugs and alcohol and sex and all those things as they get older. They aren't in their bodies anymore because they dissociated from those bodies, because those bodies were telling them the truth of what was going on in their homes. And the people in their homes were saying, no, that's not true. What you saw, what happened, and how you feel is wrong. So stop it or you're going to be punished. We are going to hurt you if you believe that what you saw just now, which could have been really bad, didn't happen. So you have to start questioning yourself and start believing other people, because the people that love you are telling you you're wrong, and you depend on them to tell you what's going on, because you're a child and children don't know things yet. They need to learn, right? That's why we mirror our feelings. We mirror their feelings. Oh, you're hurt. You're sad. Okay, I understand. We tell them, we name for them what they're feeling. Oh, you're crying. That means you're sad. Okay. And we show them by telling them, oh, you're sad. But if you have a parent that's like, oh, you're sad. Don't be sad. Sad's bad. You're a little boy. Don't be sad. Don't cry. You little wimp. Then the little boy's like, okay, I'm not allowed to be sad. Okay, that's bad. And if the little girl's like, oh my God, I gotta tell you, and the girls get all spazzy and they dance around and they want to be showing off and twirling, and the parents are like, stop acting like an actress. You are so melodramatic. You are so bad and stupid and wrong for, you're ridiculous. Don't do that. Don't be that person. And then you're like, oh, okay, it's bad to be funny. It's bad to be happy and hyper and acting and singing and dancing. Okay, it's bad. And then you lose who you are. You lose that part of you, that spark in you, your soul spark that was going to maybe be an actress or a dancer or, a debate team person or, whatever you were going to do because your parent or caregiver said you're bad for being you. Okay. So you learn to deny and you learn to gaslight yourself. Like they changed your reality. They gaslighted you and then you learn to gaslight yourself. And as you grow up, you're still doing that. You're still gaslighting yourself. You're still denying yourself who you are. You're still not crying because somebody told you it was wrong to cry when you were little. And you're just not being who you really are. And so you get into these relationships with people. So you didn't attach, let's say you're a guy, you didn't attach to your mom very well because she had stuff going on and couldn't, nurture you, take care of your needs. And you became avoidant and you come into contact with an anxious woman or person that partner who needs a lot of love, needs a lot of love. And in fact, as a child, your mother may have been somebody who needed you to give her attention because she didn't have attention from her husband or her parents or anyone. And so she needed you as her little boy to give her that kind of emotional connection that she wasn't getting with her husband. So you become her surrogate and you feel really enmeshed by it. And it feels very disturbing to you as a child to be having this kind of emotional relationship with your mother who you're supposed to depend on, but she's depending on you. And you learn that you have to be the one women depend on. Okay. Or your partner, but we'll say women in this situation just to make it less confusing. And you grow up and you meet a woman and you fall in love with her, especially unknowingly to you, because she has the same characteristics as your mom. She has the same feeling, the familiarity, the family feeling of a person who needs you to be their support, yours or her support animal, right? You're going to help her relax her anxiety. She's insecure. She's had abandonment wounds. She's had a lot of issues in her life. And you're finally the one that's going to save her. Okay. And she's going to save you because finally you get to be, hopefully, if you give her enough support the way you gave your mom, hopefully, unlike your mom, this woman will now want to support and love you because mom couldn't do it. But this woman can because she loves you and she's attracted. You guys have a relationship and you're attracted to each other. And it's really great. And there's a lot of highs and lows in these relationships, a lot of push and pull, roller coasters, a lot of intermittent reinforcement, and a lot of, basically abuse because when you get triggered by the other person who reminds you of the parent that you had the attachment wound with, you're going to start blaming that person for making your life horrible. And so there's an abuse element to the trauma bond between both parties, but there's also the bond part, which is the addictive part. Okay. So let's get into that a little bit here because there are there's like biochemistry involved in this bond in addition to this very deep sexual attraction, this chemistry. And then it's not to say like, I wasn't attracted to my mom or dad like that. No, it's not like that. It's that this person acts out as this sort of, I'm going to say karmic, because in the spiritual world, we say a karmic connection. It's a connection, but it's more of like an attachment. It's an attachment wound based relationship and you get attached to the person, but in order to have like a romantic relationship and to heal the wounds. You're trying to heal the wound, believe it or not, in these relationships, but it's usually not working. But you're trying to heal the wound. And so you're drawn to this person very sexually so that you can hopefully heal it, right? And that's the reason we get attracted so much to people is, relationships are about becoming conscious, not about becoming happy. Our happiness is from us, ourselves, okay? Our sovereignty is very important. Our interdependence in relationships, and I'll explain more about that in a minute, but that's the most important thing. And the relationship itself is not there for that person to complete you and to make you whole and to make you happy. You are already complete, whole, and you can already access your own joy and your own peace and your own happiness. We think another person is supposed to fulfill us. We think, oh, I met my soulmate. They're supposed to fulfill me and make me. No, you're supposed to be in a vertical relationship, not a horizontal enmeshed codependent tit for tat, fighting and push pull. It's supposed to be two people vertically, one here, side by side, being their own human beings, doing their own human things and coming together in an interdependent relationship, not a codependent, not a dependent. Sure, you can kind of depend on each other. And that's kind of part of the interdependence thing is you do have some level of dependence. You have some level of independence, but it's not a codependent enmeshed thing. And trauma bonds are very enmeshed. It's the whole abuse thing on crack because it's like isolating, not allowing, controlling, dominating the other person with your needs, your constant needs. And if you're anxious and your partner's avoidant, you want more love. They want to move away from love. It's not that they don't love you, but if they get enmeshed with you, there's a good chance you might break up with them and then they'd be alone and they'd be abandoned. Both parties have big abandonment wounds because when they were little, people told them that they were wrong for who they were and they started that disconnecting and abandoning themselves for other people. And when you abandon yourself, you're always going to be abandoned by other people because you have to not abandon yourself first. You have to love yourself first to love anyone else and to be loved by other people. Okay. So the same thing is with abandonment. And when you're in these relationships, you're both afraid of abandonment. So one wants to open up all the time and have a lot of, connection and affection and love. And the other one's afraid of it. The other one's afraid of the affection and love because he or she might get hurt and abandoned. So both parties are terrified of being left. And that is kind of the heart of it. It's not to say that these relationships can't get healthy together, but my thing with my clients is I say, great. The only way you'll know is if one person starts the healing process, starts healing their stuff from childhood. Then the other one will either go, whoa, I like what's happening. I'm going to get help too. I want to get better. I want to be better too. Or the other one will start abusing more and will not like the changes and will start making you feel smaller and less than they already have because they're very worried about losing control and losing you. Because technically, if you get healthier and you're happier and you're sexier looking and you feel more confident, you could find someone else. So this person who's abusive, who isn't healing, is now threatened and jealous and all the things because they aren't healing and you're looking great and they're being left behind in their mind. When all they have to do is heal. And maybe you guys could like ride off into the sunset as a happy couple who is also healthier, understands themselves, isn't afraid of losing themselves or being themselves. But it takes at least one of you to do the work. Okay. And when one of you does the work, it can help the other one. So it's not like you got to break up with this person because they're horrible. No, I mean, life is life and life is lifing and people have problems and you work on your problems and hopefully your partner will too and you'll grow together instead of growing apart. And that's kind of the whole point of this conversation is there's life after wounding. And the reason people don't want to do it and want to stay in denial and stay where they're at is because the brain needs to know what to expect. And the nervous system is very comfortable in its discomfort. So when the brain doesn't know that a future of peace is on the other side of this pain and this turmoil, it's not going to want to easily let you heal because it doesn't know that you're going to be okay and that you're not going to die from actually being healthier and happier and more joy filled, And so that's why when I coach with you, we take these things in the very smallest steps because we have to like convince your brain it's okay to have boundaries. It's okay to say no sometimes. It's okay to speak your truth. It's okay to do these things that you haven't been able to do. Once it knows you're not going to die from that, you'll be able to do it more. And then all of a sudden you're kind of on a new neural pathway. And when you're on a new neural pathway that's more positive and healing and helpful and good for you and feels good to you, guess what? It starts to calm your nervous system because you're no longer telling your nervous system that you are unworthy and not good enough. You're no longer believing people, including your partner, that you're not good enough. And when you're feeding yourself that information in your mind all the time, it affects your nervous system and it's like a feedback loop. So your nervous system is then affecting the way you think. And it's hard for your brain, the three parts of your brain to come together into one aligned part and think logically. You've got a lot of the, primal and the limbic part, which is the emotional part, being fired a lot and triggered a lot. And then the logical part doesn't have a leg to stand on because it's being overwhelmed by the more emotional parts of your brain and your nervous system. So we want to get you to a place where you feel, healthier inside your own mind have a mind shift about who you are and be able to stabilize into that so that your nervous system can calm down. And I'm going to talk about this a little bit more with the self-love aspect in a few minutes, but I want to just say that the trauma bond happens, and then you grow and you find someone that you bond with, and then you have this continuous sort of bonding experience that's not good. Now, trauma bonds can also be, so okay, so let's say you have this belief from childhood that you aren't good enough. And false beliefs like this can become coping mechanisms, right? And the reason is because it was easier as a child to stay low and shame and hide and play small and not shine and be unworthy and be helpless and be not good enough and be unlovable than to fight for your right to be loved. Because if you fought for your right to be loved, or you stood up and said, oh, here's what I want, here's what I think you should say to me, mommy, you would have been probably hurt, right? You could have been abused more. For all you knew, you could have been abused more. You didn't know because you didn't have skills and tools and higher brain development to really sort that out and think long term. You had right here and right now in this primal brain that needed to survive. And in order to survive, you had to take on the belief that you're a bad little girl or boy for crying, screaming, laughing, or whatever it was. Okay. And so it becomes easier. Again, you have a neural pathway that you're treading all the time. I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. And it's the easiest, it's the path of least resistance. It's very easy to go on that. And you kind of sit there in this kind of space inside yourself somewhere, knowing in the background, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. And it's coping mechanism. And then it leads, inner critics are there like, see, if you did it, that, or you failed the test, you see, you're so stupid, you're not good enough. And it leads to addictions. It leads to other kinds of coping mechanisms to numb out. So you won't have to think about the fact that you're letting everyone down and you're a failure and you're a bad person and you're not good enough and you're unlovable and on and on. And so trauma bonds serve as a coping mechanism as well, because when you're distracted by having to cater to and try to get external validation from your partner who needs the constant attention, you're distracting from your inside wounding. It's a numbing out. It's just like an addiction. It's like those limiting beliefs. It's like alcohol and drugs. It's like food. It's like anything that makes us feel a little bit better for a little bit of time, so we don't have to face our actual feelings and beliefs about ourselves on the inside. Because if we did that, we'd have to deal with shame, and we'd have to deal with being a failure and letting people down. And the way to get better is to have an honest conversation with yourself about those shadow parts, right? About those subconscious limiting beliefs that are not true and never were true. They were given to you by people who were not healthy either. And they were given to you just either directly in messages or in the way they acted, and you internalized it. Okay. They didn't necessarily all the time mean to tell you you were worthless. They may have made you feel that way simply because your brain as a child needed to come up with an answer, right? Your brain does not like grays. It needs an answer. Mommy's not talking to me. That must mean I'm bad. Okay. When mommy is silent, that means I'm bad. That may not have even been the thing. Maybe mommy was busy thinking about like what she was going to make for dinner and she was just in her own mind. It may have been completely benign or it could have been very abusive. Either way, your child mind created this story in order to feel like it had an answer. It needed an answer. Okay. And so none of it was true. That's the good news. The thing we need to do is work out of that, get rid of that, because that was never true to begin with. And now that you're not a child and you're an adult and you're resourceful and resilient, we can change that. Okay. And that's the great news about this. But if you're in a trauma bond or you're doing things to avoid your feelings, you're just delaying this inevitable process of healing. It's a lot more fun, it is fun. And that's why I do love this whole thing, because it is fun, but it's not easy, but it's getting to know yourself and seeing these things you've believed about yourself and how they've shaped your life, and then that you can change them and you have control over that, is very empowering and liberating. It's a freedom, and a freedom to be who you really are. And so I am asking you to be courageous. I'm asking you to look at these things and change them in whatever way works for you. I don't care if it's self-help books. I don't care if it's coaching. I don't care if it's therapy. Whoever can help you get to the other side of the lies about yourself and the fear about yourself and back into a state of love, which is what you really are and who you are, and to help you get to doing what you're supposed to do on this planet. Your job on this planet isn't to cater to other human beings. in a way that makes you lose yourself or minimize who you are. We're all equal. Okay. We're all equal souls. We're not any better or worse based on our intelligence levels, our jobs, our color, our, gender. We're not better or worse than anyone else. So we're all very strong, sovereign souls who are on a planet that has completely forgotten who we are. And what we want to do is remember who we are. And as long as you're sitting there with these trauma reactions from childhood dominating your life and getting in the way of your job as a human on this planet and of feeling love and happy and free and at peace, you're just wasting time. It's hard. I'm not saying rush, rush. I'm just saying it is a waste of time. You're avoiding yourself and you're hurting yourself in the process because you're dying every day. You're dying anyway, but you're dying faster when you're avoiding because you're creating a lot of stress. You're creating a lot of effects from the kinds of foods and alcohol and drugs and things you might be doing, risky sex, whatever it is. You're hurting yourself and damaging yourself when all you need to do is look at the pain you're in and understand the root of it and move through that. And I'm making it sound simple because it is simple. It's a simple process. It really is. It's just not an easy one. Okay. I'm not going to say that there is a difference there. So I know this is a long podcast and I'm not finished, but I just think it's really important. And I really want to be able to really express that it's such a common term trauma bond is right now in the world and such an important relationship pattern to see. And that starts within yourself and is just perpetuated in your relationships. And if you break up with this person right now, you're going to find somebody else who's just like that person in a different body until you learn the lesson, until you heal. And so it's just worth really looking at it now, even in the context of the relationship you're in order to start to try to disconnect from it or heal so that maybe it can get better between the two of you. Because I mean, like if you're avoidant, let's say, and your partner really just wants you to love them, work on your reasons for being avoidant, work on your fears around enmeshment, work on your fears around being abandoned. If you are vulnerable and open and share and express love to somebody, that's a risk. The person could be like, oh, I guess I don't love you. You're really open and I don't like it. And that might happen. That's happened to people. Okay. And that can crush you and it can make you feel like I never want to express love again because when I do, people like laugh at me or leave me or hate me or call me names or whatever. But that shouldn't stop you from trying to love again because there are people out there who will actually reciprocate that love and love you back. But if you're staying in relationships where you don't want to open up and the other person really wants you to open up because they need you to have a good relationship, it's probably worth it to work on that. It's worth it to work on your anxious attachment style as well and to not be so needy of that love because you are your source of love. And when you heal your source of love and you are your source of love, you show up in a much more centered, balanced way. And that can sort of make your avoidant person kind of want to come closer because they're not feeling so like, oh my God, what are you going to do? You're going to like eat me? I don't know what's happening. So it's just worth looking into your attachment styles, looking into what happened and really facing it, processing it, being honest about it, being aware of it, being aware of your patterns now in order to get to the next step. Awareness is everything, right? It's the start of everything. So there are chemicals that are involved when you get connected. So when you enmesh with your trauma bonded partner, you do enmesh, you get sucked in and you're together all the time. There's no room for anyone else. It's very isolating. It's very, very codependent, right? There's also other chemicals that are in fact at play, like oxytocin. It's kind of like the bonding hormone, like the love hormone. Mothers, when they're nursing their babies, they have a release of oxytocin and it helps the mother and the baby bond together. And it's a really beautiful thing. And you need it. And you need dopamine. Dopamine's a good, pleasure and reward. And it's one of those things that gets, kicked off when we're addicted to certain kinds of foods and drugs and things like that. And, sex. So that keeps you, connected as well. And when the abuser alternates between abusive behavior and acts of kindness or affection, the victim's brain releases dopamine during the positive moments, and that helps them sort of stay hoping for the positive moments again, because frankly, you become addicted to that pleasure of, oh, when he's nice to me, oh, I love him. And it's so good. It feels so peaceful. It's not really peaceful. It's like an addictive, like opioid release in your brain, and your body now feels high, and it's good. It feels good, right? You also have cortisol, and it's a stress, hormone that's released during the anxiety and fear and stress of the fighting part time, and it causes the fight or flight reaction in your body. And trauma victims experience spikes in cortisol due to the stress of the abuse. The stress response, can create downstream health consequences later. And so when you're in these patterns of abusive cycling with your partner, you're getting a lot of hits of the cortisol often, often enough, too often. I mean, you need cortisol for like helping you to wake up and stuff. It's part of your normal biochemistry, but not to get you into fight or flight all the time. And there's adrenaline as well, and serotonin. And so these are just, that helps regulate your mood. And, when you're in an abusive situation, you can have emotional instability. And when there's the affection and the reconciliation happens, serotonin levels increase. So the victim feels happier again, like with that dopamine thing. So, the brain and body do become conditioned in these cycles, especially with the addition of these chemicals. And that just keeps you in this addictive pattern. And this is how you can cope with life better in these traumatic bonds, because you don't feel your feelings when you have all these drugs being released in your body, when you are using your relationship as a coping mechanism like you would drugs or alcohol or food or sex and all the things that make us feel good, that are, supposed to be part of life to a degree, depending on what I'm talking about. I guess alcohol and drugs don't need to be, you know, well, unless they're prescribed drugs for like a medical condition, but not like, we're not really supposed to be taking drugs and eating certain kinds of foods and alcohol. Those are poisonous for our bodies if they're taken in the wrong way or taken at all, depending on what they are, right? But these chemicals, these neurotransmitters in our bodies are meant for specific things to help us, combat pain and protect us from pain and protect us if we're actually in a situation where we have to flee for our lives. They're not meant for the daily grind of work or being in relationships where you're feeling constantly attacked and stressed out. So the reason that you stay in these relationships and they're easy to be in is because of conditioning from childhood, right? So your nervous system co-regulated with your abusive parent, even if that parent wasn't attached to you in the way you needed them to be. You needed to co-regulate in order to survive. Your nervous system had to find a way to be calm in the storm. And that could have meant that you had to be parentified and take care of your parents' needs, right? Like that little boy who had to, emotionally take care of his mother so she would be okay. He co-regulated with her so she would feel okay. And now he's finding women in his life that he has to take care of because it makes his nervous system feel calm again, like at home. Now, what happens though when you decide to heal and you decide to start loving yourself and you go on sort of a self-love journey? Now, self-love is the term thrown around a lot as well, and people are like, I don't really know what that means, and that's fine. But self-love is starting the process of owning your past, owning your feelings, loving yourself no matter how you feel, being okay with your feelings, and also changing those false beliefs and stories that are not true about you. And once you get the smallest, tiniest bit of self-love on board, it's quick. It's a quick noticing of, wait a minute, my partner isn't very nice to me. You may not have noticed it before this, right? Oh, my partner is mean. Like he's telling me that I'm not good. Like he's like criticizing me a lot. I didn't notice that before. And you start to think things like, well, okay, if I now love myself this much, I don't want anyone loving me less than this. I want them to love me the same as this or more, right? Right? Because you don't need to be around someone who's going to make you feel worse. Because then what happens also is your nervous system now has this starting to have this calming down effect. It's starting to go, oh, I am worthy. Okay. whew, and it starts to feel more securely attached. You start feeling more securely attached to yourself. Whereas when you were little, you were abandoning and disconnecting. Now you're connecting to yourself more, and it starts to calm down because it knows it's safe now with you. It knows it's secure and it doesn't have to work so hard at going into fight or flight and be activated all the time. And so when your partner comes along and is like, you're kind of just a really bad person and ugly and like, you're so stupid. Like, what's wrong with you? Anything like that. I'm sorry. If people in your relationship are telling you you're stupid or anything like that, please don't take that. Please don't think that's okay. I don't care if they're just joking. That's not joking. That's mean. So, you know, now you're noticing she calls me stupid and stuff a lot, and I don't think that's very loving. And then you see your nervous system, your body starts feeling anxious and it starts feeling uncomfortable and irritated. And that's something to pay attention to. That's something you start to go, okay, I'm either going to stay here and be in this uncomfortable place where I feel kind of icky toward my partner and I feel like she or he doesn't really like me or love me at all, thinks the worst of me. I'm either going to stay here to the rest till I die, which could be tomorrow because it feels horrible because your body starts to feel it. Really, 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 it starts to feel it. It's like unsettling. You can't stay in it. Or I'm just going to drink myself numb into oblivion until I die, or eat myself, gain weight, and just die of a heart attack, or mainline heroin. I don't know, anything to be able to handle this horrible feeling I have whenever my partner talks to me about me in a negative way. I have to make a decision now. I have to decide, do I want to stay here and die? How, and in whatever way I'm going to do that, or do I need to get out of here? Okay. Or on the other hand, you could start getting better and your partner could start also getting better. Okay. And that would be the ideal situation. But I think the whole thing in this whole conversation is the antidote to all forms of abuse is self-love. So get on that pathway, no matter if you decide to leave your partner or not, and then you'll know better what to do. But if your partner, start to notice, is my partner talking to me in a way that's loving? Because it doesn't matter what your partner is. If your partner is emotionally abusive, narcissistic, you know, borderline personality, bipolar, or none of that, but they just don't make you feel good about yourself, that's all that matters. All that matters is, again, not the label of the person. All that matters is, how do I feel with this person? Like in my body, in my heart, my soul, my mind. How do I feel in their presence most of the time? I'm not talking 30%. I'm not talking 70%. I'm talking most of the time. I'm talking 90 to 95% of the time. Okay. If it's 85, fine, but please don't go lower than that. You want to feel good in your relationship almost all the time, because if you are a sovereign, interdependent human being who is securely attached to themselves, you shouldn't have a partner that makes you feel bad about yourself most of the time. You should be feeling good about yourself in your partnership because you don't rely on your partner to fill your voids. You're filling your own voids and you're loving yourself. And that partner is the icing on your cake. That partner is not your cake. That partner is the added, okay, I'll take some icing because that seems nice. People should be an additive to your life, to your already happy life. They should supplement and add to your well of love that you have already for yourself. And self-love is a baseline thing that all of us are allowed to have. It's not like I'm conceited and arrogant. No, that person who is conceited or arrogant is acting from a place of insecurity. They're under that threshold of self-love. You want to be at just the neutral baseline. I'm good. I'm secure. I'm confident. I like myself. I love myself. I'm happy with who I am. Take me or leave me. I'm okay. That is like the baseline. If somebody comes in and is like, you're not good enough. You need to change. You're this. You're bad. You're this. You're ugly. You're fat. You're stupid. Whatever. Why do you need that? If you know that you're good and you know that you love yourself and that you're whole and you've got some weight to lose, or you're not as smart as Einstein, but you're pretty good, who cares? Who cares? Take it. This is me. Take it or leave it. I don't know how to play the trumpet. If you want somebody who's musical like that, go find them. I don't know. If you don't like somebody who's, 20 pounds overweight, go find somebody who's skinny. I don't care. If you don't love me for me, you don't love me. So go find somebody you love, somebody you want to change or make into the perfect clone just like you or whatever you need. That's not me. I'm me and I love me. And you're either going to meet me where I'm at and love me just as much as I'm going to love you or more, or you're not going to love me at all because you're not going to love me less than who I am and who I know myself to be and who I accept myself for being. Okay. See, that's love. That's loving yourself. And you don't accept scraps. You don't settle for less because you don't need to. Because even if you're alone for the rest of your life, you're going to be okay. It's more peaceful to be alone than to be with somebody who makes you feel like crap about yourself every day or every other day. I guarantee that. And I just need to also say that like there is a fear of being alone for many, many people. And then you want to work on that. Grieve the loss. Grieve it. Accept it. Get to acceptance. I might be alone until I die. I might die alone. You're going to die alone anyway. But most of us don't want to be alone because we're scared. But when you realize you're never alone, you're really never alone. You're not. You always have friends. And guess what? It's fun to do things alone. It's fun. You take yourself on dates. You read books. You don't have to have a fight. You can just sit there and watch whatever TV show you want to. It's nice to have a companion. I get that. It's nice to have friends and support and love and romance. It's not that you'll never have it, but you want to have that with yourself first and then share that with people. Okay. Share that with someone who wants to be there sharing it with you without cutting you and without making you feel less than. Right. So this is my big long chat about abuse, and I hope it's helped you today. There is a quote I want to tell you. I read it today by Caroline Middlesdorf, and I just saw it, and it says, heal so that you can no longer feel the need to prove your worth to those who cannot see it. Okay. And you've probably heard that before. I feel like I've heard that before. Yeah, heal because you want to be in a place where you feel appreciated, accepted, adored, and cherished and loved for you, by you. First, be who you want first. It's an inside job. You are everything you want in a partner for you first. And then your partner comes into your life and adds to it, mirrors it in a healthy way, not in a love bombing way. And I can tell you, there is a difference. First of all, trust in a relationship comes in time. It's not a one day we're chatting and all of a sudden I trust you with all my heart and soul. No, it is a time. It takes time to build trust and to make sure that this person really has your back and you have their back. And it's not based on love bombing. It is based on true friendship first. You want to be friends with your person. And then if it builds into something else or develops into something else, great. Then you know you have a solid friendship and that you really care about and love each other as friends first. That's so great, because then it's not the love bombing. It's just like, you're chatting and you're getting to know the person and it's not all like, there's no pressure to like be somebody you're not. There's no pressure to impress the person. It's just here I am, warts and all, and laugh and have fun and take it easy. Just take it easy and get to know the person and let them get to know you. And it can be a slow roll into something very meaningful and beautiful and grand. And it doesn't have to be this quick, instant gratification, love bombing, let me just, flatter you out of control so that you'll be mine and I'll be jealous and threatening and I'll be insecure and you'll have to take care of all my feelings. That is so exhausting and it's not healthy. It's not healthy for either party. You as the victim are just enabling the abuser to stay in an abusive cycle and you're having your energy taken and you're dying a slow death. It's like chronic illness is happening as you have so much stress and activation from the stress of the abuse. And it's just, yeah, it's just not good. So that's my story, guys. Next time we will have a guest, so it won't just be me yammering at you. Please leave me some comments so if you have anything to say about this. I'd really love to hear your opinions and thoughts on this. And If you need any help with this, please find me. It is my absolute passion to help people with these kinds of abusive relationship and the relationship you have, especially with yourself. Because like I said, once you start seeing your worth and knowing your worth, you just will not accept anything less than that from anyone else again. It's so cool because it's such a subtle little shift. It's like you have to do almost barely any like rewiring of your brain in terms of like knowing your worth. Like your conscious mind knows your worth. You're worth it. It's your conscious mind always wants you to be happy. It's your subconscious mind that drives everything though. And it has the belief stored from childhood, the I'm not good enough because, the shame covers over the shame you got as a child. And when they said you were bad covers over that, those, your beliefs, and it starts to push it down into like this hiding space. So you've got this hidden belief of I'm not worthy. That's dictating your entire life and all of your relationships and your jobs and your money and everything. And we want to dislodge that sucker. We want to bring that guy up into like let's take that out of the shadow under the underground and bring it up into the light and look at it. Cause really you start to look at, I don't feel good about myself and I feel unworthy. You look at it and you're kind of like, okay. And at first you might feel sad. And this happens to my clients a lot. There's a lot of sadness and I feel bad saying that, Kristen. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. But you want to have this conversation. You want to have this like, okay, I see you skeletons in the closet. Come on. I see you there. And, are you really that powerful? Because it doesn't seem like it. And you neutralize this. And once you neutralize it, you're at that level of, yeah, I'm good. Even if people think I'm not worthy. Yeah, that's the way it is. But I know I'm worthy. And now I really know it. Now the parts of my brain can line up in one line. My conscious, my limbic system, and my subconscious mind can all line up in agreement that I'm worthy rather than my conscious mind thinks I'm worthy, my subconscious thinks I'm unworthy, and my subconscious mind is in charge. So we want to help you with that. And you get some help with that, you can start to notice when people are treating you badly and you're just like, I don't want anything to do with you. I don't. Easier said than done with people who aren't that close to you, but with somebody that you love dearly, who's your partner or your family member, it's much harder. But you start to be able to like choose yourself and stop abandoning yourself. Anyway, I have, for those of you who maybe get to see me on video, I hope this is not part of my video. I have my sunlight, my skylight shining lights into myself now onto me, and it's making this big square of sun on my shirt. That means it's time for me to go, especially because I've been talking for such a very long time. So anyway, I hope that this was helpful for you. I know it's very long, but if you have questions or comments, please find me, please comment, and you can always find me on my website, schedule a discovery call with me, and see if I can help you with this very, very, very difficult but important pattern. I want to help you break it. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time. Thanks. Bye.